So yeah, I'm representing the Fortean Film Festival. And after talking to Chris, we identified some areas of overlapping interest with paranormal investigations, anomalous phenomena, Fortean sort of subjects. And we're looking to sort of partner with ASAP going forwards, with a view to sort of having some sort of benefits of promotion through your organisation, and bringing some interesting films to you guys as well. So that's, I suppose, the purpose of the webinar really, and why Chris wanted to set it up.
Yeah, and I believe that you've got a separate area within the conference that you're going to be hosting some films during that weekend.
Yeah, so the film festival, by sheer chance, obviously clashes as one way of looking at it with the Seriously Strange conference. But the way I want to look at it is that potentially we can be in two places at once, you know, and bring the film festival to your conference as well. And I think because the film festival takes a lot of science fiction and a lot of horror, there's probably some films that are probably not as, you know, as suitable as others, you know. So but within the factual content, there's probably quite a lot of material that is going to be up your street in terms of documentaries and things like that. So I've got a couple here, which at some point, you know, I'd like to try and see if I can share the trailers with you for, because I think there's a couple in amongst the selection that we've got that really might be worth a look for you guys.
Thank you so much for coming on this evening to talk about the Fortean Festival.
It's a pleasure to be invited, so thank you.
We look forward to seeing you and your party that you're going to host at the conference. So tonight it's over to Tim.
Okay, well, I suppose a bit of background about the film festival and why we really got started was going back a couple of years. I sort of broke into the big cat investigations with my colleague Matt, who helps, you know, run the festival. He's co-founder, co-director of it, and in our sort of foray into the world of big cats and trying to make a serious, credible, scientific and historical look at the subject, we found that most of the film festival community had an indifferent at best attitude towards these fringe product, you know, the non-mainstream sort of subjects really, and as a consequence there was a huge sort of variation in how you could be received and treated. And against the backdrop of COVID, with all the restrictions, the film festival circuit really sort of, it was struggling, and it was evident in the way that we were received. And enough of these interactions, you start saying things like, well, we could do better, you know, and you say that enough times, you start to believe it. And then you say it enough times beyond that, someone says, well, put your money where your mouth is. And so that's why we sort of got the Fortean Film Festival off the ground. The goal being really to champion these films and documentaries and the subjects that were not as well received in the mainstream, and to really do justice to these filmmakers, because a lot of them have put in a lot of hard work, and it's a shame when the product is worthy of a look that it doesn't get the attention. We're spoon-fed EastEnders and Coronation Street until until we're sick of it. But these other projects could do with a bit of attention. So that's our goal, really, to help and promote these independent filmmakers who are looking at the subjects we love, that, you know, get so often overlooked by more mainstream outlets. So yeah, that's where we're at, and that's a bit of background about the festival. And I suppose we're in the second season now, is important to say. We got the first season finished after only 4 months, so it was quite quick from inception to actually putting on a live event. And we're just over a year ago we got started, so we're into the second season now, and there's well over 100 films sat there that have been submitted. And yeah, our goal is hopefully by the summer, between your conference and the live event that we have, you know, to help some of these filmmakers get some publicity and get the attention they need, you know, by partnering with organizations like yourselves, and with various magazines, podcasts, all with an interest in various aspects of the weird and the paranormal. The goal is that collectively we can, help some of these filmmakers get off the ground and, get some of these projects into profit-making ventures, I suppose.
How many of the films do you have that are going to be put in for this festival?
In films in specifically the paranormal investigation category, or films in total, do you mean?
In total, how many would submit?
Oh, so through the whole season, I'm probably expecting by the time we finish it could go up to 250, about 250. At the moment, there's 174, although that's a bit misleading because some filmmakers have entered their film more than once, but individual submissions, it's listed as 174, though it's probably more like 150 individual projects sat there currently, but it could go up to maybe 250.
And is there a topic that seems to be more prevalent than others?
So the first season, there was a very strong cryptozoology flavour to things. And that's still sort of present now, but we've got a little bit more tilting towards the more sort of paranormal ghost sort of investigation type subjects. But again, this season as well, I've been taken aback by how many horror and sci-fi films that have come in as well, and there's a real mixture as well between feature length and shorts. Some of them we've got a category for like a micro short, so there's a little trend in filmmaking to sort of push the storytelling abilities to see how effectively filmmakers are able to tell a story in 60 seconds. So there's a category for those micro short films, and we've got a few of those in, but I'd say the average length for a short film is probably about 20 minutes. But a real variation. And for me, I've been, I feel really, really blessed because I've been in a position where I've been able to get rid of Netflix. There's just so much there to watch. Netflix doesn't get a look in anymore. So
I take it they're all independent producers, and they haven't had anything on the big screens.
So some of them have, they're all independent. Some of them have got a Hollywood pedigree. We've got a sister film festival, which was actually started because in the first season, we had a couple of romantic comedies and Westerns, which didn't have any Fortean flavour. It's just people who are a bit keen to submit to new festivals, didn't quite properly read what they were entering. And we thought, well, it's a shame to take their money and not help them celebrate their work. So we set up a sister event where any inadvertent, inappropriate submissions can be dealt with and still, celebrated. And in amongst there's actually quite a lot of independent films that have submitted in the second season who have quite a strong Hollywood pedigree. They've worked on, all sorts of things. But again, this might be their first venture as an independent, branching out and going it alone, as it were. But so they are all independent films, but I've been surprised at how many have got a major celebrity attached to it, or a major producer attached to the project.
Are you allowed to name drop?
Well, I suppose the biggest British names I can think of off the top of my head, we had a film with Toya Wilcox in it. It was a horror film, a teen sort of slasher film that had Toya Wilcox playing one of the sort of evil abusers of these children in it. It was quite a radical film, to be fair. And then there was another one with Ricky Tomlinson in from the Royal Family. Who else did we have? I mean, there's more. I'm gonna clam up and
don't worry. I'm very interested in Wilcox, actually, because she's in programs in the last couple of months about her own home being haunted.
Right. Okay.
I wonder if her interest in the paranormal was sparked from her own personal experiences.
Well, quite possibly. I mean, the film that she's in is I don't know if you really class it as Fortean, but it kind of fit well in the horror category. It's a teen slasher film. And it kind of does have a paranormal flavor to it, although it's not the main thrust of the story. But it certainly seems whatever she's up to, she's got an attraction for the sort of macabre and the, you know, it was I have to say I wasn't expecting it from Toya Wilcox. There was blood and knives and goodness knows what, you know.
They didn't have that in Teletubbies, did they?
No, quite. No, they didn't.
So what's the criteria then, Tim, for being a 14 film? What do you have to submit it under?
So there's a portal on a website called Film Freeway, which is the main sort of online presence which most film festivals, including like Cannes and Sundance and a lot of Academy Award-winning referral film festivals, you know, most of them operate on Film Freeway, although there are some other platforms. And much like you do on Facebook or Twitter, you set up a profile for your film festival, and then that becomes a sort of the submissions portal where filmmakers can securely put their content for film festivals to look at and manage and all the rest of it. So filmmakers, first off, they will need to set up a free account with them, but once they do, they can not only submit to us but submit to all the other film festivals around the globe. And the only question we ask of filmmakers submitting is, does your film have a Fortean interest, and if so, what is it? And you can usually pretty much tell whether or not they've read everything, you know, based on their answers to that question. And we then look at the trailer and start to sort of rate the appropriateness. And it depends how kind you want to be to some of these filmmakers. We have found there's a grey area where you can debate the Fortean relevance of films, particularly when you get into sort of the fiction and the fantasy kind of stuff, you know. And I like to be generous to the filmmakers because I like everyone to be able to participate, but it's caused some interesting debate. For instance, we had... so this is another name drop, although unless you guys like WWE wrestling, you won't know who he is. But there was a wrestler who's been let go by the World Wrestling Federation, and he'd made a short film, which was almost a doppelganger dream sequence kind of thing. He met a different version of himself in a daydream who basically sort of told him to wake up and sort your life out and, you know, stop moping around, you know, take action and do something decisive. It was like an uplifting message, and we had debates among the judging panel. Is this Fortean? Is this Fortean? And me being a wrestling fan decided that it was. I said, well, it's a doppelganger dream sequence. I said, of course it's Fortean. And everyone was like, yeah, all right, Tim. So there is a debate about it, and I suppose the ethos really for us is to try and help independent filmmakers get a lift and off the ground. And, you know, if I can include, I will. You know, I don't want to be prohibitive, but of course, having this alternative film festival, which has a broad, all-encompassing, all-welcoming attitude, if something doesn't quite fit the Fortean focus, we just, you know, slide it sideways and help them celebrate their film in a different event. So yeah, sorry, a bit of waffle there, but
no, we like waffle here on this this chat on the webinar. It's what keeps it going. So what's the different categories that people can put their films under?
Right, okay, now there's so many categories that I will have to I'm going to have to load up the page and just have a quick look to refresh myself. But so we separate films into features and shorts, and the categories just go on. So best science fiction, best horror, best conspiracy film, best mystery film, best YouTube show, best paranormal investigation, best cryptozoology film. And again, we've got another category which seems to be the concept people like, you know, the idea being to try and let everyone participate. Now, the number of filmmakers I spoke to who said, oh, we're just nearly finished with our filmmaking project. It's been years in the making, or we're not quite yet done. We've just got a few more bits to film. And so we've got a category for best work in progress and, you know, best concept. So if people, you know, are nearly there, or they just want that little bit of publicity, and, you know, maybe they need a sound editor, or maybe they need an animator to come on board with the project, well, we'll try and make this the forum where we can maybe help with that too. So we're encouraging filmmakers who have got unfinished works in the process to talk to us as well.
So I know that we have a lot of people within ASAP that have such a varied interest within the paranormal. So what advice can you give anybody that is thinking about putting a film together for next year?
The advice I would say is, if you plan it right at the beginning, it is kind of critical, really, because you can go out with a camera and record loads of beautiful stuff, but then you get back to edit it and realize, oh, I didn't quite get the sound right, or the settings on the camera weren't quite right. So it's really about paying attention to the small details early on, and really doing your quality control, because the difference between a really high quality level YouTube production and something which will make it to TV, there's actually quite a gulf there, and I watch so much YouTube, I kind of forget myself, because high quality YouTube productions, it's entirely watchable, and the production value is very, very good on a lot of these sort of industry outsiders. They're very competent, and yet when you compare and contrast to network telly, there's still a couple of things which aren't quite there. So you got to think where you want it to go at the beginning, where when you set out to make a film, what's your aim? Do you want it to be on YouTube, or do you want it to go to TV? And adjust your production methods accordingly, really, because some people make a lot of money out of YouTube, and it's not a platform to be sniffed at. But again, if it's a project that you want to eventually have the option to try and pitch to a network, study other shows similar in similar genre, see what's been successful and what hasn't, and try and emulate, in some respects, bits from other shows that has worked, and also try and get a crew together that can help you do it. If you lack the experience in editing or camera work, there's probably lots of creative individuals out there with those skills looking for a cool project. So it's about trying to find a team that's got the right passion and getting your goals sorted early on. But you're not going to make a film by being sat on your sofa, so you've got to get out there and do it as well. So my advice would be, it really depends on what you want to try and do, but think early on about the small details, because it matters when you get to editing it.
I remember watching a film at the cinema about 4 years ago now, I think it was. I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone knows, it's a horror called Unsane. It was filmed about a girl who went to visit somebody in an insane asylum, and she ended up being an inmate. Now, if I can remember, that was filmed in its entirety on an iPhone, and the quality was superb, and that made it to the big screen. It was amazing. So what you can achieve with minimum items of kit is phenomenal.
Absolutely. And there's certain films where it's actually it's necessary to use those kind of methods. When you start thinking about things like found footage horror films, you can't have it recorded in the best 4K camera. It's got to look like it was shot on a mobile phone as well. So there's things for artistic purposes where using historically mobile phone cameras have been classed inferior, but when you're talking like the new iPhone 12, they're more competent than some of the purpose-built cameras from 5 years ago. So
you couldn't imagine watching the Blair Witch Project on widescreen, could you really?
It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work, would it?
It wouldn't have worked. No. But so once our budding film artists have managed to get their team together, they've got the plot, they've got the kit, and they're starting to produce. Once they've done that, how do they submit it to you?
So as I say, you go to Film Freeway, you set up your account, and as a filmmaker, you go on there and build your account, and you can add successive film projects. So if you have more than one, or if you're making a series with multiple episodes, you can list them all in there, and create a profile for that film, which would include the poster, the trailer, all the cast listings, and really sell it. In terms of a synopsis for a film, these film festivals get so many films, they don't have chance to read like paragraphs and paragraphs, so it's got to be short and punchy, you know, maybe 2 or 3 sentences max, and it's got to really draw potential viewer in and do a good job of conveying what the film's about. But yeah, once you go on there, there's a small administration fee to pay to submit. But I would also encourage filmmakers to reach out to film festivals as well. The festival directors love to really have engaged sort of filmmakers reach out. That's the whole purpose of these events. And it's not just us covering sort of paranormal, you know, there are a lot of other sci-fi and, you know, horror and other sort of film festivals that do have an interest in factual, you know, content, you know, along the sort of weird and wonderful. So there are lots of places really that can sort of champion these films, although you'll probably find they're in America or down under or whatever. But reach out to the festival directors and let them know about your project. Don't be scared to email a film festival and say, hi, you know, I'm so and so, this is what I'm working on, you know, please have a look at our trailer. And we, you know, don't be scared. The worst they can do is say we're not interested or just ignore you, you know. But our festival is really aiming to sort of help these filmmakers network and get to the next level. So another thing I just quickly add is that one thing we are intending to offer for every single filmmaker who takes part is constructive criticism. We want to be able to give constructive feedback for every filmmaker. So it's kind of a rule for the jury members that you can't just, you know, slag a film off and say it's no good without giving good reason, you know, like, or even better, say how it could be made better for next time, rather than say, oh, we didn't like it, you know, this wasn't good, that wasn't good. You reframe it and make it into a positive. You can say, conceptually, you know, that, you know, film could be improved and this is how I would do it, you know, going forward. Maybe you need to look at the lighting wasn't right in this scene, or maybe the wardrobe could have been better, or whatever. But give the filmmaker something tangible they can focus on, so that next time they're making a project, you know, they've got something to work with, so that they know where they can up their game.
You briefly touched on costs that people would pay to submit their entries.
Yeah.
Are they affordable for the Joe Standard man?
So they obviously, what's affordable is changing so radically, isn't it? So I mean, we felt they were, based on the fact that some of the film festivals, they will charge, we're talking like well over £100 to participate in events like the Sundance Film Festival. And the reality is they get so many submissions to them, and you don't really get a bespoke service that you'd like, really, you know, unless it's going to be, you know, Academy Award referral level sort of stuff. You know, they want those level film festivals to really be able to champion, you know, the Hollywood level kind of films, and kind of in doing so, their cost is almost so prohibitive, you know. But filmmakers, they have a dream. They want to be at the Sundance Film Festival or the Cannes Film Festival, so they will scrimp and save and pay the £100 plus, only to get an email saying you haven't been selected, with no feedback, with no suggestions of anything, and they just kind of like take your money and run kind of thing. So our film festival, if you get in the early season, so there's 3 seasons, there's early, middle and late season for submissions, and if you get in early, I think it's £15 to submit.
Okay.
Which is, I think, well, I would have thought at the time, you know, when we were setting the prices, that was pretty fair. But I think maybe for the next season, depending on how things look, it might drop that a little bit.
I was thinking how reasonable it was.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it is reasonable. We're really not trying to make it into a money grab. But when I look at what we offer the filmmakers compared to other film festivals, let me just try and have a look. So we do try and make sure we've got an industry professional panel of, like, you know, people from all around the world. I think there's about 40 different judges on the jury now, all of whom have an interest in Fortean subject matters or filmmaking or media. So the idea being that every judge can contribute something from either a sort of anomalous phenomena perspective, or a filmmaking perspective, or a publicity perspective. So we try and really make sure that everyone's film project does get the eye of someone who can help that filmmaker raise the profile. And then, you know, we try and invite filmmakers to be interviewed on podcasts and for magazines. So if any of you guys are writing any articles, or would like to review some films or whatever, please do let me know, and we can talk about getting you guys access to maybe see some of the screeners if you would like to be interviewing filmmakers and reviewing some of their content for any publications that you guys write for. So I know Leo, some of you may know Leo, who works at the SPR, who edits the magazine there. He's very kindly offered to help with promoting and publicizing some bits and pieces. So he's on the jury, and has access to see some of the screeners as well. So if anyone else is likewise writing for publication and would like some of this, that would be helpful for us as well as it may be for you.
Is there a contact email that people can get you on?
Yeah, so I'm pretty laid back, really. Facebook tends to be friends and family, so I'm a bit harder to find on Facebook, but you can find me on LinkedIn. It's just Tim Whittard, and you'll find me there pretty easy. I think I'm probably the only one on there. Or you can email the film festival, which is info@forteanfilmfestival.com. Or there's a contact form on the website. But if you go to the website forteanfilmfestival.com, you'll find links to all our social media and details of everyone who's on the jury and all our festival partners. And actually, just coming back to Chris mentioned before he disappeared at the beginning, that ASAP will be sponsoring the paranormal investigation film category. And some good news to that end, in terms of another sponsor, which is going to support that category. I spoke to a gentleman, Andy, who works at an organisation, I don't know if any of you know it, called Infraready.
Yes, I know Andy. I know him personally as well.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I don't know what he's like as a gentleman. It's my first interaction with him today, but I'm very thrilled to say that he's agreed to partner Infraready with our film festival, and we'll be offering vouchers to the tune of £150 to a filmmaker who wins that category, so that when they go on to make their next paranormal investigation film, they've got a bit of a hand with some of the paranormal equipment they can use.
Yeah,
so
he's a good chap, Andy.
Well, I can't talk badly of him if he's willing to help me to that tune. He'd never spoken to me before today, didn't owe me anything. I just reached out to him in the small hours of this morning and thought, again, my philosophy, they can only say no, or ignore you. And Andy replied very graciously and very quickly and said, yeah, we'll help and we'll be part of it. So there'll be some updates made to the website in the coming days, and those of you that look at the partner section will see Infraready added to the organizations already there.
Mm-hmm. He's a very honest, decent guy. I've had a lot of dealings with him. It's good.
Yeah, he's very straightforward, very quick to reply. So yeah, and again, if anyone else has any ideas, or maybe you work for organizations that might benefit from partnering or might be able to help, just drop us an email. I'm really laid back about it. If anyone wants to find me on LinkedIn or social media. And again, if you do want to message me on Facebook, you can go through the Fortean Film Festival Facebook page. That comes straight through direct to me. So there's lots of ways to get hold of me.
That's great. Thank you. I hear you've got some clips that you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, now I'm going to try and do this. Now, there's a couple of documentaries that I think might be of interest to your members, and I'm going to see if I can work out which. Right, okay. Bear with me. I need to work out how I share my screen.
So down the bottom of the screen here, you'll see like a little green up button that says share screen.
Where am I?
If you look,
there we go. I've got it.
Yeah.
I've got it.
Okay. And then once you've clicked in, it will give you an option to share audio as well. It should do from the view option up the top. I think it is. You have to
share sound. Yeah. Right. Okay. Cool. So let's see if this works. So the first documentary that I'll show you just the trailer for, if I can, is called Sounds of the Dead. It's about electronic voice phenomena, and this is from a documentary maker who's actually also on the jury, bless him, but he makes a lot of content around this sort of genre. So I'll just load that up and let me make it big screen. Can everyone see that all right?
I can see it fine, yes.
Okay, so I'll press play and shut up and let it go to the end.
Is there anything in the castle that we should be afraid of?
Something is going on.
I had read about EVPs, really felt drawn to it.
11 years ago, I was a complete skeptic.
There's enough compelling evidence out there that we should be taking this seriously.
I lay down in here.
We're back. The evidence that is showing up today far outweighs anything that's been shown before.
Oh, what is this?
Something beyond the physical body.
Once you open that door, you can't close it.
Is there anyone here?
So that was the first trailer. Did you all see that okay?
Yes, that was good.
Okay, cool.
Is there anything in the castle that we...
I was nearly playing it a second time there. It was that good, you nearly had it twice. And then the next one is a trailer for a documentary called Science Friction. And this one is sort of trying to take a look at TV documentaries, and it's almost advertising itself as an expose on how editors will craftily construct science to their own ends, really, in these documentaries with TV scientists. So we'll just hit the trailer up for that. There we go. Can everyone see all right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
The first thing I think when I'm asked to be on camera is, will I be represented properly? Will I be taken out of context? That's huge to me. And every time I talk to someone in the film industry, I already am concerned. I'm already worried.
So they made it seem like I believed in the voodoo shark and that it existed.
Not only is that dishonest, you're messing with that guy's career.
But you have to understand, from our perspective, we need a scientist to say, it's real, that's the story. They said, well, then it's not a documentary, that you're doing a work of fiction.
Then they called back and said, well, you know, it got picked up for another season, we'd really like to have you. And I said, I feel like I was mischaracterized on your show. I'm not happy about that.
They chose just to use the first part of the interview and not use the part where I'm talking about an explanation, which is grounded in reality, and just leave it open-ended like, okay, it could have been a monster.
If you don't care what I'm saying, if you don't care that I'm an expert on these things that I've written books about, then why am I here? Don't turn me into a liar.
So there I was watching the premiere broadcast, and I see myself saying the words that I had said, but with the framing removed, and left me just saying this old disproven idea that I actually don't accept.
None of these are based on any science or anything that scientists have said. These are all completely false.
That's the most extreme example that I know of. They outright manipulated those interviews and those edits, and it's dramatic.
This paper doesn't say that at all. COVID-19 did not exist when this paper was written.
And therefore, if the news or the newspapers get it wrong, the public is going to be misled very, very rapidly.
Wow, I can't wait to watch that one.
So it sounds like we've got a selection for your conference there. I think, so, judging by your reaction there, it seems like...
Yeah, as I was talking to you earlier, Tim, obviously I had a documentary made about me, which was released yesterday. And we had a sneak preview of it, and I was very grateful that it was very respectful and it showed an accurate portrait. It's a large subject, the paranormal, so you've got to try and condense it into a half-an-hour program. And we split this half-an-hour program with an Austrian team, which we'd never met and never had conversations with. So we didn't know the way that they worked. and they didn't know how we were going to be portrayed. But as soon as we both had the release a day early, we were contacting each other saying how accurate it was and how respectful it was towards the paranormal.
Well, that's a good thing to know of, and make a note of those filmmakers and the producers and the editors as well, because they may approach you again in the future, and you can add them to what will be probably a short list of gentlemen filmmakers. But as I was saying to you as well, it does certainly seem that the independent documentary makers do have a vested interest more often than not in presenting things properly, because they're always anxious that they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot for the next project going forward. Particularly if your specialist background is factual content or documentaries, you always need those talking heads and those experts to contribute. And if you get a reputation for being someone who skews the truth or misrepresents people, or does dastardly things in the editing room, then no one's going to be volunteering to work with you when you got your next project. So maybe I'm being too generous to the independent filmmaking community.
But it's interesting to hear both sides of the story, to be honest. How long is the Skeptic film? How long is it? Does it run for?
Let me have a look, and I will tell you the running time. The running time on this one is an hour and 26 minutes.
Okay, so it's a full feature.
It's a full feature, yeah. It's a full feature. But I mean, if you guys can find an hour and 26 minutes spare in your conference, I'd be more than happy to get you guys a copy of that to screen at your
By all means, I don't know what it is that CJ had arranged with you, so by all means, chat to him about what it is that you wanted to show. I think, though, that most of the people within ASAP would probably want to see something of their specialist subject more than a skeptic. They probably want to see things on cryptozoology and UFOs and mediumship, any kind of thing that would be more fitting with them. I would probably think would be, I don't know, guys, what do you think? Show of hands, would anyone like to ask Tim some questions?
Yeah, please do, feel free.
Kieran, do you want to unmute and ask a couple of questions and give my voice a break for 2 minutes?
Okay. Well, I don't know where I start with this one, because I don't watch a lot of television and I don't watch a lot of films. One of the reasons for that is almost exactly what we saw, which is clips of, particularly in terms of, the science fiction, clips of people talking about something I don't know about yet because nobody's explained it. One after the other, bang, 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 bang. It's just clipology. So you don't understand, you can't follow, and you think, you end up switching off. Because the whole thing that I have with sort of modern production values is exactly that kind of thing. Clips slapped back to back, no transitions. It's all jump cuts. And you can't orientate yourself in one clip before you hit with another. You don't understand who the people are, what they're doing, why this is important, where the thing is going, or anything. And with a lot of films, the dialogue is stripped down. So, you've got to be able to know and understand every word, but you can't because the actors growl, whisper, or mumble. And it just makes it so frustrating that, I just don't go to any cinemas anymore.
Sure.
And okay, that may be a personal view that people here, might not share. I might think, well, I'm not talking about the paranormal. But for an educated audience, in a sense, with the skeptic, then it's a question of, oh, there's this equipment there. Oh, are they doing an EMF? Oh, yeah, they must be because Tim said so. Right, so it's an EMF, but I don't recognize that equipment. Now, what's the EMF? Is the EMF one of the people talking? Is that an investigator? Is that some sort of response to an investigator asking a question? And then you zap into another series of clips about various things, of whether things are real or not. Who are those people? Are they the investigators? Are they commentators? Are they, what's their role? So I don't understand any of that. And it makes it difficult because, again, I have the same problem with this and a lot of the paranormal shows because, okay, the new fashion, is to clip out, the edited highlights and show that at the beginning of a program or a film or whatever, a trailer, and then to think that somebody understands the story from that. Well, they don't, because you don't know who's who or what's what. And I know, sorry to kind of go on about this, but I think that it's going back to some of the more old-fashioned production values, where shots are held, that you can understand who's who, and that you can get an idea of character and personality of the different actors involved, even if they are investigators and it's some sort of documentary or whatever. You have to know and understand who they are and what they're doing. And you can't do that when, you get basically having some sort of flashing light show that you can't understand things. So it's that. And then trying to highlight within a documentary what is where the evidence is, where the controversies are, then who thinks this and who thinks that and why, in order to be able to produce a meaningful exposition of the subject for either somebody who knows about the subject or for somebody who doesn't, because you've got to try and work a pitch out on that as to try and get it sort of, I don't know, probably about halfway. So there's something for the expert, something for the knowledgeable, and something for somebody that's kind of coming into this. So probably done a lot of talking, Tim and Caroline.
No, I think it's all valid stuff and interesting to bring up, because I do think it's true that when you're dealing with subjects, as we're interested, particularly in film and television formats, even for those filmmakers who want to stay true to the science and the story, there still is a degree of compromise you have to make, because obviously if you make a production that is entirely science and no entertainment, well, no, you're not going to appeal to the masses. You'll have a small audience and maybe a cult following, which is nice. But if you want a broader appeal and you want to reach people that perhaps normally wouldn't look at those subjects, you kind of need to compromise a little bit. And I suppose it's down to the individual filmmaker on how true they want to be to the science. And I think that's what that science fiction documentary is about, is really there are some shysters in the community who've clearly just taken those sound bites and really misrepresented people, cutting out the important stuff in the middle, which is, that
can even happen on live TV as well, which I found to my detriment last week with Jeremy Vine. Thanks very much, Jeremy. He asked me to go on his show to talk about the increase in paranormal activity during the lockdown, and cut me from what I was talking about, took me on a tangent about my own childhood paranormal experiences. So it wasn't exactly what I signed up to talk about.
Oh, crikey. Oh, my goodness me. So there you go. I mean, these unforeseen things, and it might have been done out of complete innocence and naivety. He was probably just genuinely interested in that aspect of your story, and yet he's taken you off on some sort of...
I had hoped to actually talk about ASAP and to get that in, but you couldn't even shoehorn it in once he'd asked the question. You go off on a tangent and then that's it, you're done.
That's it. Thanks for coming. See you again. Oh, dear.
Yeah. We've got a question here from Dave Sivy. We'll just go through a couple of these. So it says Toya Wilcox was also in the film Gah, about people who behave like gorillas. Did you know about that one?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. But it sounds like it might be up my street.
Hey, do you want to give us a little bit of a brief about the film?
It's out on DVD, and I've seen it also on HMV. It's been out on a few years ago. And I heard about it through a website called 366 Weird Movies, which reviews the really, really strange. And apparently it's sort of like a family drama, but people behave like gorillas. And so you have people sat in front of TVs with massive channel changers going like that in front of it. And at one point, Toya Wilcox comes in with dinner and then crouches behind a chair to have a dump. So if that's the kind of thing you want to see.
No wonder it was straight to video. I can't imagine making it onto the TV screens.
Yeah, I can't imagine Film 4 going for that.
Maybe 5, but not 4. Going down the list of questions, Chris Ayres says iPhone 7 Plus using Filmic Pro app. I don't know if Chris wants to unmute. Have you got any experience with doing that yourself, Chris?
Sorry, experience with, what was the question again? Sorry.
Using an iPhone 7 Plus, using Filmic Pro app.
I haven't, no. So my sort of role in sort of filmmaking isn't technical at all. I have to admit, hands up in the air. I don't operate the camera. I don't do the editing. I'm and people will say, well, what do you do? But I find the interviewees that hopefully our editor doesn't misrepresent when we do finally get to film them. I find the sets, the locations, the props, that kind of thing, and network and mingle. So in terms of editing on a phone, I've got an iPhone SE, and I do use an app called InSoft, I think. And yeah, I mean, phones are quite capable, really, when you consider the computer power that's in an iPhone 7. You know, some people would scoff at it, really, but even by what we were using 15 years ago, it's probably more capable than, you know, some of the desktop computers that were being used. So don't be disheartened if that's all you've got to edit and use. You probably find you're capable of making some quite good stuff with it. But I would also say, you know, if you're finding it difficult with just that one app, do have a look for others, because you'll find there's probably quite a few different apps you can use that are probably free on the App Store.
That was nicely coincided with the dog stopping barking again. Dave has another comment. He said it brings to mind, I think it was after you put the clips up, he said it brings to mind Jonathan Ross' 80s Channel 4 series, The Incredibly Strange Film Shows.
Okay, that's I don't recall that series. I would have been very young at the time. I was probably watching He-Man or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I was going to say, I don't think that you'd probably be remembering from that long ago.
Yeah, just about some memories of the 80s, although they're a bit vague and blurry. But
I know, also blurry, but for different reasons. Mark Norman says the Folklore podcast has a wide reach. Drop us an email. I'm sure there are things that we can do to help. So
brilliant.
He's reaching out to you.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to make a note of that now so I don't forget, because I am a notorious scatterbrain. So that's the Folklore podcast. And who am I reaching out to again?
Mark Norman. Mark, if you're still here, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yes, I will briefly. Sorry, I'm eating a pizza. Yeah, just drop an email to the Folklore podcast at gmail.com. And we can have a chat about how we can help to promote it for you on there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Mark. I will do that. I've just made a little note for myself here on my computer, so I will be emailing you later on this evening.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, that's excellent.
Thank you so much for that offer, Mark. It's brilliant. There's also another bit of info. You could contact the Magnolians, the magazine Folded, but they're online reviewing books, and they've posted my reviews of UFO films from Dave Sivio, that was.
Okay, so that's a magazine that's called
It's called Magonia, after Jacques Vallée's Passport to Magonia. It's UFO stuff. They've moved online, so it's sort of like the Magonia review of books. But I've submitted stuff to them where I've been reviewing UFO films on DVD, and they put some of them up. So
okay, that's great. Yeah, I'm adding this to my list. It's getting bigger. You're giving me lots of leads, guys. This is great.
Glad to help.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Graham has put a link on. I don't know, Graham P, if he's done it for a giggle, because that again is another interview that's included me. The Guardian, how Britain became a national obsession with ghosts over. I've just had a roll this week. Don't ask. I'll be signing autographs later, guys. You know, when one gets hold of your details, then it just doesn't stop, does it? So in The Guardian, the questions were, why do we think that things have increased during the lockdown? And there was another gentleman who I saw on here. I don't know if he's still here or not. Tony Hayes. He was also interviewed on that link.
Okay.
Tony, are you still there? I don't know. I think.
So, firstly, how are we sure that it has increased? Are we sure it's increased?
Well, it's a controversial subject, to be honest with you, because some people say that
I thought I might get that kind of answer.
yeah. So I think it's down to the individuals who actually are on the front line, who would go out and be responsible for having calls from the public. Unfortunately, ASAP hasn't had an increase in the cases that's come up, but our team in Somerset just seems to have been gifted, also along with Tony's team, the amount of stuff that comes through. But I think it's people having more time on their hands at home, and what they could possibly do with their time. Obviously, it sparked an interest within the paranormal. So we have had some ridiculously off-wall kind of comments about personal cases. We have had some that we just can't find explanations for. So yeah, but whether
pushing
or not,
it to the limits of the known.
yeah, I like that, the limits of the known. A lot of the known is known to us that are in this kind of hobby, and not so known to the members of the public who are still at the stage of orbs and dust and moisture.
Yeah, I know a video editor who's got a very strong view on orbs. He says they make good TV, but you know he's pretty sure he knows what causes them, and they're artifacts of the camera. But like, I don't know.
I think they probably made good TV on the Jonathan Ross program back in the 80s, but maybe not so much now.
Well, when you got nothing else, you know, you just want a little puff of mist to go past the camera and an orb, and you can make 15 minutes of telly out of that.
It was that Roman soldier that we've all heard about, wasn't it?
That's it. It must be a spirit of the dead, you know. It can't be dust and a bit of fog.
And there's no lens flare on camera phones, none at all.
No, that's it. And you'll have the presenter there going, oh my God, that's it. It's proof. We got it on camera. Did you see that? Oh, yeah. And it's gone really cold in here. You know, you can make TV out of nonsense like that. You just got to have the presenters say and act the right way. And but unfortunately, I suppose that's probably what Kieran was identifying earlier as well. There's a little bit of that which puts you off. You see it one too many times in these shows, and then you kind of think, well, they're never going to find anything, are they?
Yeah. You
know, and it's disheartening for those of people that really are hoping for something.
We've had quite a good roll on things recently, but I used to be a police officer, and it's a bit like being a police officer. I've always likened it to that. So when you go out on a night shift, it can be very Q, and Q is the word that you would use for quiet. So
yeah, you don't say quiet.
No, unless you want it all to kick off. There are things that can make extra activity in the police, such as, and don't laugh because it's true, full moons, because obviously the moon is a powerful tool that can move the water. It actually affects people as well.
Well, you're 80% or 90% water, aren't you, as a human being? You know,
yeah.
I work in a psychiatric hospital, so
it's where the word lunatic comes from as well, that people were governed by the moon, the loon. So yes, as a police officer, you were waiting and it was silence, and all of a sudden you get that big rush. That's a bit like ghost hunting or paranormal investigating. There'd be nothing for days, and then all of a sudden you get a mad rush on it.
Same with big cats as well. You can go months and months and no one sees any, and then there's a week and there's 20 sightings.
There's one that's been spotted a few times right opposite our house. You're welcome to pop down to have a look with your film camera.
Next time I'm in the area, I will.
Yeah.
You keep an eye out. If you see any dead deer, you know, up in the tree, do be sure to give me a call.
That would be Skinwalker Ranch, wouldn't it?
Well, I don't know. It happens occasionally. It does happen occasionally over here. You know, they think that cats are the culprits, though. You know, if you do find a deer up a tree, it's it's a possibility.
So the next question we have is probably going to be easier. Jackie, did you want to unmute yourself and ask direct, my lovely?
Yeah, I can't remember what I put now. Yeah, I just done some filmmaking courses myself. I haven't really done that much actual made any though, many, but I have made a few. And I know quite a few professional filmmakers of Fortean stuff, and I've met quite a few of the sort of natural history ones as well. And the big thing they've told me is always the sound qualities. If you're going to get anything, you know, the other stuff not as important, but the sound quality is the most important thing. Because if you can't hear people just switch off. And I mean, that was an issue with the first series of Poldark, wasn't it? Loads of people complained they couldn't actually hear it properly, and it caused major issues. And you would have thought a professional production like that, they would have got it right. But
well, I suspect they probably did have decent recordings, but it may have been more in the sound design afterwards when they got into the editing. They may possibly. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's so easy to overlook because you think of TV, you know, like it's the visual that really catches you. And most people think of when you think of a TV, you think of moving pictures. But obviously, if the sound is subpar or not up to standard, then you've ruined your production right off the bat. So it does, anyone who is here, you know, thinking of making a film or knows someone who's interested in it, it does pay to invest in. You don't need to spend hundreds for a decent microphone either, you know, but it does pay to get a proper microphone, you know, separate to the one that's built into the camera, because unsurprisingly they're not always that good. Even
there's
if
also, I've got professional microphones, but you can get those Zoom recorders. You can buy them.
That's
about
what I use.
300 quid. And all you got to do, my friend said, do a clap at the beginning of your recording, because that's really easy to match up when you're dubbing up. So,
absolutely. So as the camera rolls, you know, every time, you know, if you haven't got one of those little clacker boards, you know, the where you write on in chalk, scene 1, act 2, whatever, you know, so but it's a very good point. You know, the sound quality is something to get right first time, really, because you can't go back and do it after the fact, you know. So
and then also for you as well, a guy called Neil Geddes Ward. I don't know whether you've heard of him. He's run various podcast radio shows. He's also gives talks on various Fortean stuff, particularly about fairies. He's quite a famous New Age artist.
Okay, no,
as well.
I'm not familiar with him. No.
He's also an quality control editor for Channel 5. And he's always just willing to do voluntary stuff with people. He absolutely loves helping people out with stuff.
That's brilliant. Those sort of learned
really
people
nice
in the
guy
industry.
as well. He'll be there helping.
What did you say his name was again? Sorry.
Neil Geddes Ward. Neil, and then it's Geddes, Geddes, and then -Ward.
Cool. Perfect. I've got that. Thank you.
Really
I will have a look at him.
Well, really helpful and really interesting bloke. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I will have a little look for him and reach out to him if I can. I hope he doesn't mind me finding him on social media.
Yeah, I'll let him know. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I have another question, but it's more off the lines of Fortean Festival. It's from Graham. I think it's directed at both of us. What do we both make of Zach Bacon's show, like Ghost Adventures? That can be answered by you first, Tim.
Style over substance, isn't it, really? I mean, they kicked off really promisingly with their first episode. Now, I can remember that like 12 years or so ago, maybe 13, 14 years ago. And they came gate crushing into the TV scene with claims of video evidence of ghosts. And, you know, I was really enthusiastically sort of taken in by all of that. But the fact that then, you know, it all sort of disappeared without much of a fanfare. You know, it wasn't scientific evidence of anything. It's good editing. It's good editing. If you want to kill an hour, you know, it's nonsense telly, really, though, isn't it? From my perspective, you know, he's certainly worked out how to market it.
I think at the beginning it says this show is for entertainment purposes, and I agree. Quite a lot of sensationalism, and you know, how many demons can one man meet in his lifetime? I just think, you know, it's just a word that's bandied out there too much. And I like your expression, style over substance.
You see a lot of that. You do, but it's a choice as well. But I mean, I don't think Zach would be offended by us describing it in those terms either. You know, he's not going to hear our, you know, comments, and he's not going to hear our laughter when he's got all those millions sat in his bank account. Do you know what I mean? So, in some respects, he's almost sold his soul, hasn't he? You know, he's undercut his credibility, but you know, he's built this empire, and he's probably having a whale of a time doing it. So in some respects, I tip my hat, because he's at least bringing the subject to the masses, you know. But in other respects, is he doing more harm than good? I don't know. It's one we can debate.
I think there's a niche for what he offers, and it doesn't suit everybody.
No.
Can I raise the issue here about some of the equipment that they use, and you know, the spirit boxes, the REM pods, and so on? To what extent are these really scientific instruments that can be helped and used in sort of ghost hunting, basically, to obtain evidence? Or is that sort of help not so much a scientific prop or prop at all? It's just about theatre and, you know, appealing to the masses. You know, here we've got a gadget box, and you know, we can have a play around with it, and let's see what the spirits do with it. You know.
Well,
Again,
I suspect you're, you know, it's the latter, isn't it? Really, you know, it's a prop, isn't it? It's a filmmaking prop. You know, they if they don't bring these gadgets out, you know, it's something to wow the viewer with, isn't it? It's, you know, and something, you know, the naive viewers who perhaps won't be as savvy as people in this Zoom chat, you know, will look at that and think, oh, look, that's proper science. Look, it's got flashing lights on and everything, you know. And that's it. You've blown their mind. It's done the job, really. But in that regard, it's doing a disservice to those people, you know, because they're the people who will bang the drum loudest about paranormal proof and scientific proof of ghosts, and it's not, is it?
I think when a kit comes out, sometimes there was that rush that people would want to try them and they'd want to see them. But after you've had a piece of kit that you've tried a couple of times, you just go, oh, I just can't see.
It's like you sort of struck on this thing now. I forget the name of it, but there was a device that was championed by an American entrepreneur going back a few years ago, and it was a device for locating bombs, the bomb detector, and essentially it was just a plastic dowsing rod in this thing. Now, he pushed it so hard, right? It was being sold to security agencies and governments around the world, including, I think, American police agencies, the Iraqi army. And it was just, when they took it to bits, there was no mechanical components to it. It was just crappy dowsing rod, really. But these organizations were taking it on, and it was being used by professionals as a bomb detector. And it's like, so there's a classic example, like, you know, it's not in the paranormal, but of, like, you know, nonsense gadgetry purported to do some miraculous, you know, task, and actually you take it to bits, you realize it's just nonsense, really. And I think that's, you know, unfortunately something that when you're dealing with filmmaking in this subject, you're going to have to contend with. And you know, there will be, in amongst the sea of, you know, charlatans, there will be some filmmakers looking to do the subject honestly and not misrepresent it. And it sounds like, Caroline, you found some filmmakers to hang on to their contacts, really, because
well, we still talk on a regular basis, but they are phenomenal. The guy who did the filmmaking with his own team was Cobalt, spelt with a K. They're a German company,
right?
And they've sold the product to Arte, ARTE. They are phenomenal. The first thing he said when he walked in the house was, "Oh, do you use this app that the Austrian people use?" And I went, "A what?" He said, "An app." And I went, "No, we don't use apps." "Oh, how do you think it works?" And he explained that it creates this voice phenomena that would get words out of, you know, like a dictionary or something. And I just said, yeah, we don't use apps. And he said, well, what do you use? I said, a good old Zoom recorder, chest cams, and infrared cameras. And he said, do you use anything else? And I went, we have bought them, you know, in the past, but when you look at what their function is, and you've educated yourself to what it is that they're made from, you just think that they're worthless, and
Yeah.
you know, they're good for finding wires in the walls, and that's about it before you drill a hole.
Nice.
On a different subject, I think Jackie Tonks has said, I've tried to get some top wildlife cameramen involved in cryptozoological projects, and they have been very nervous about doing so in terms of their reputations.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't, does Jackie, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I won't name them, but they are literally some of the top ones. And they said they were just really worried. There was some interest, some of them expressed around Pendek, the sort of the small man of Sumatra. There was a bit of you know, they said there seemed to be, there was quite a few. There was one, an Australian cameraman who's actually seen it. So there's a bit more with that. They felt that was a little bit more possible for them to perhaps, you know, but anything like the Bigfoot or the Almas, they were just really nervous about. They said, we've got to be really careful. It could completely wreck our reputation.
That's it. If you attach your name to one of those projects, that's it. You can wave goodbye to working with David Attenborough at the Natural History Unit. Do you know what I mean? Even though he himself has got quite an open mind on things, I'm sure you can find clips of him talking about the abominable snowman and things as a plausible concept. It's very dodgy territory, and it's sad because you find it in fields like archaeology as well. I mean, you find it in and it's not just the cameramen as well. I have to say, you know, if you want someone as an on-screen presence, I mean, I showed the trailer of those scientists who were all misreported, but I mean, going back when I was making my Big Cat documentary, trying to find a professor of genetics to look at this DNA that was purportedly discovered in the UK, they just wouldn't touch it. No one wanted to go near it. So
and sadly, we lost Brian Sykes, didn't we? Who was one of the few, wonderful chap, Brian. I knew Brian, and one of the few who would actually risk their reputation. And
that's right. So interestingly, there is someone that I have got a loose rapport with to that end, a TV geneticist who may be helpful in the future going forwards. With quite a bit of profile. I don't know if any of you guys remember Dr. Churi King, who did the genetic work on the lost remains of Richard III.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
So she works on the BBC DNA Family Secrets show, and she's actually in a show that we did called Cat Hunters, The Search for the Beast of Exmoor. She did a little bit of DNA work for us in that, and very cautious again that as long as we didn't misrepresent her, she would work with us. So, you know, so there's a contact there for going forwards potentially if anyone is interested in and needs a geneticist with a background in TV. And I have to say she wasn't interested in either doing a money grab with us either. She was very, very reasonable for us to work with. So there are people out there, and I think it's just about taking the time to really show people and earn their trust and not misuse it once you get it. You know, that's important.
We had a chat with Alice Roberts as well, and the presenter? She was actually quite interested in things, and she seems to have quite an open mind. So that was quite encouraging. So
yeah, no,
she took references off me, which is great. Yeah,
that's amazing. Well, you will find some of these people are interested, and you'll probably find that some of them are actually quite disappointed that they're not able to, you know, jump into these kind of projects, you know, because they're normal people too, and we all have an interest in the weird and the wacky. But some of them just, you know, they're in a position where they have to bite their lip.
That's it. I mean, it's good Ian Redmond, Diane Fossey's old assistant. You know, he's been advisor on some of the stuff I've been involved with, and he's great. He's gone on Fortean programs, you know, and he's obviously well known as well in the BBC. Goes on with Attenborough. We need
Lovely
more
bloke.
Yeah,
like I've had some dealings with him in the past in regards big cat stuff and actually mental health. My day job is as a psychiatric nurse, and I wrote a book going back about psychiatry, and actually Ian, he had so many profound things to say on the subject that he contributed a small part to the book. But he said to me, he said, Tim, when you start to see continuity in the behaviors of caged great apes and institutionalized psychiatric patients, you've got to start asking questions. And I was like, that was a light bulb moment for me. He's a good bloke, is Ian Redmond.
Yeah, good guy.
Sort of on a similar but different subject, John Ford asks, have you seen the film Owlmen and Others. So perhaps we sort of want to go dip into Owlmen, perhaps?
Owlman. No, I haven't seen the Owlman movie, is the answer to that. I've heard a lot about it. I believe that was something to do with John Downes, wasn't it?
Yeah, do you want to come in there on that, John? Where's John?
He's unmuted. He's ready
He's
to go.
on mute. Oh, right.
John, can you hear us?
Can't hear John, no.
No, okay.
Okay. Because, I mean, Owlmen is something that has been noticed down many generations and actually several centuries. Owlmen in trees, are they owls? Are they sort of little creatures or whatever? So there's a bit of a kind of a psychic or paranormal history about them. So it's not just limited to a single film, it's an actual sort of long-lived phenomena.
Yeah, no, I was aware that there'd been a lot of sightings going back, and not just owlmen as well, like other kinds of birdmen as well. I've been told of, but I'm no expert on the subject. But I am aware that it's sort of something that predates the wacky film that I haven't seen, but I've heard a lot about.
So is this Owlman and his antics that he has, is it in a certain part of the world or is it all over?
Well, there are sightings and there have been recorded various sort of sightings and accounts from, all over essentially, but owlmen take different forms, so it's difficult to be able to figure out whether people are talking about the same thing in different words or they're actually describing, a different form, a different entity, a different creature or whatever.
Can I just interrupt very quickly?
Please go ahead.
Right. Mark has just said, I confess that I made that film.
Ah, right.
Mark, you need to unmute yourself and stop eating your pizza and talk to us about this.
I've eaten it now. Yes, I confess I shot and edited The Owlman and Others for John years ago. It was made for the Fortean Times Unconvention many, many years ago. It has about as much factual content as the invention of the Owlman by Doc Shields in the first place, I think.
And I'm led to believe there's some gratuitous nudity in there as well. Is that right?
I couldn't possibly comment on that, but you probably don't want to show it at your festival.
I met the nude lady a while back in an animal sanctuary. My friend, I know most of my friends are in it. It's quite amusing for me. So.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It says here, John Ford said it was a crazy film featuring Lionel Fanthrop. I've got a VHS tape of it.
I've got the original tape of it. Yeah, Lionel did the an introductory piece to camera for it. Lionel and John go back quite a long way. They made a slightly dubious album together at one point, and John persuaded Lionel to introduce the film. I'm not convinced necessarily that Lionel was aware quite what he did take his dog collar off and shot it wearing a red vest rather than his normal attire, if I remember correctly.
And Richard Freeman's in it as well.
Yes, there's a lot of dubious people in it.
Yeah. And the Lemonade Man, I know the Lemonade Man as well.
Yes, yeah.
That is brilliant. I love that.
Yes, it has got gay Nazis in it as well. That's true.
Best kind of Nazis, I find. You're going to have them. You might as well have gay ones, haven't you?
You're far less likely to punch a gay one.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say to that. I suppose you're being inclusive, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't necessarily describe it as an inclusive film, possibly. I don't know.
It'd be quite offensive by modern standards if I know Rich Freeman.
Actually, it is. Yeah, you're right. It is inclusive on the grounds that it will probably offend everybody equally.
Yeah, that's it.
So, what era was this film made then?
I honestly can't remember. It probably would have been late 1990s, early 2000.
Mm-hmm.
At a guess, I really can't remember.
Okay. It's one of those
Easy
ones
memories.
you want to put in the back of the head.
I'm going by format, and the master tape is on SVHS, so it's going to be quite a long time ago.
Mm.
Wow.
So also, Mark, you said something about Mornan Smith in Cornwall.
That's where the Owlman that the film references was cited. I've not got my camera on, but take the fact that I'm saying cited in that way to have big air quotes around it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the official title of that cryptid is the Owlman of Mornan.
Okay, so this was a specific folklore to that area, I'm guessing.
Yes, very specific. Yes.
Yeah, and obviously it can bleed to other areas of the world. I mean, ghosts aren't specific in one area, so.
Well, the Owlman of Mornan is not unlike the Mothman, I suppose, if you want to draw a parallel with American folklore.
Yeah.
So my wife is just shushing the guinea pig. It's the school holidays, and our lounge, which is normally quiet and peaceful, is now full of guinea pigs.
I can see that the time's ticking on, ladies and gentlemen, and I would just like to say a massive thank you to Tim, who I really enjoyed the talk, and I can't wait to meet you in person at the conference, and we can chat more about the Fortean Festival. So from me, thank you very much. It's been a great chat.
Thank you all for having me. Thank you. And thank you all for your help and for being so obliging. And, you know, you volunteered some really good contacts and leads there. And, you know, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And I will actually contact you on LinkedIn so I can send you the info that we were talking about.
Yeah, please do. Everyone, feel free if you know, anyone's got any questions, if there was something you'd like to ask that we didn't get a chance to cover, you know where to get hold of me. And yeah, I'll look forward to speaking to you. Thank you all for having me. Cheers.
Lovely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very much.
Have a lovely Easter, everybody. And it's a big goodbye from me as well.
Bye-bye now. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.